The Killer Nun of Greece, Mariam Soulakiotis and the Monastery of Death. Soft monastery bells, echoing through mountain wind, then silence, low, haunting tone. High in the Greek mountains, far from the eyes of the world, stood a monastery where faith became fear, and salvation turned to suffering. The woman who ruled it was known as Mariam Soulakiotis, to the outside world, a holy sister devoted to God. But inside the monastery walls, she was called something else. The Killer Nun. The saintly beginning. Born in 1896 in Greece, Mariam Soulakiotis grew up fascinated by religion. By her early 20s, she had joined an Orthodox convent, and soon rose to power as its leader. She founded her own religious community near Mount Pelion, called the Monastery of Saint Gerasimos. At first it seemed pure, a place of worship, devotion, and charity. But beneath the chants and candles, something sinister was growing. The cult of obedience. Mariam demanded total obedience. She preached that suffering brought souls closer to God. Followers, mostly women and the elderly, gave up their homes, their wealth, and their families to serve her. Once they entered, they were never allowed to leave. Sound, faint church bells distort, footsteps echo in stone halls. Mariam began isolating her followers, forcing them into starvation, beatings, and endless prayer. She told them it was for their salvation. But when they grew weak, she took their property and left them to die. The deaths in the monastery. By the 1950s, rumors began to spread. Villagers whispered that dozens of people had vanished after joining her order. Families who tried to visit were turned away, told their loved ones were on retreat. But the truth was far darker. Inside the monastery, followers were beaten with wooden rods, starved for days, forced to kneel for hours until they collapsed. Those who resisted were locked away and left to die. When police finally entered the compound, they found mass graves, filled with the bodies of men and women who had been tortured and neglected to death. The trial of the Killer Nun. In 1951, Greek authorities arrested Mariam Soulakiotis and charged her with multiple counts of murder, fraud, and abuse. The public was horrified. A nun, a supposed woman of God, accused of running a death cult. During the trial, witnesses described the horror inside the monastery, how Mariam would recite prayers as people begged for water. Sound, faint courtroom murmurs, judge's gavel echoing. She never showed remorse. When asked about the deaths, she said, "They chose to suffer for God. I only helped them." Conviction and cover-up. Mariam was convicted of murder and extortion, and sentenced to life in prison. But rumors say she continued to lead her followers from her cell, writing letters and issuing holy commands. When she died in 1954, hundreds of devoted followers still called her a saint. To them, she was holy. To the rest of Greece, she was the most dangerous woman the church had ever produced. The legacy of Mariam Soulakiotis. Even today, her story remains half-hidden, a dark stain the Orthodox Church rarely speaks of. The monastery still stands, abandoned, silent. Locals swear they hear chanting at night, and the sound of wooden steps echoing through the halls. Sound, faint whisper of prayer turns to static. Mariam Soulakiotis, a woman who promised eternal life and delivered only death. Soft, eerie tone. She was called the Killer Nun. The world called her a monster, but her followers called her mother. Faith, fear, control, the perfect recipe for devotion and destruction. Bell fades out. Next time, we travel to Austria, where a man named Werner Knechtel turned friendship into ritual murder. Please like and subscribe for more morbid content.